Some mornings carry lessons disguised as ordinary moments. And this particular morning on bus 47 would prove that sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness create the most extraordinary ripples. Moments later, coffee was flying, tempers exploded, and the driver kicked someone off the bus. What she didn't know was that the old man she helped was. Welcome back to Acts of Kindness Stories, where real kindness writes the best stories. The spring wind cut through Maplewood City like a knife through butter, sending commuters scrambling for warmth as they squeezed into the crowded bus. Inside, the air smelled of wet coats, lukewarm coffee, and that soft weariness people carry when they're heading somewhere they'd rather not go. The kind of smell that reminded you the world was full of stories, most of them quiet, unnoticed, and forgotten by lunchtime. In the middle section sat Eleanor Hayes, 7 months pregnant, holding her belly with one hand and her bus card with the other. She worked at Oak Ridge Elementary as a teacher's aide, and her belly made every sidewalk feel like climbing Everest these days. Still, she smiled at everyone who passed. Always had. Always would. Some people are just built that way, kindness woven into their bones like calcium. Beside her sat an elderly man with white hair thin as frost, spine stiff as a church pew, and shoes that told a story all their own. He was trying, unsuccessfully, to bend down and tie his laces. Every attempt caused his face to pinch in pain, his weathered hands trembling as they reached for leather strings that seemed miles away. Eleanor watched quietly, her heart tightening with each failed attempt. Finally, she couldn't stay silent anymore. "Sir," she said gently, leaning toward him, "may I help you with that?" He looked up, embarrassment flickering across his features before relief washed it away like rain on dust. "Oh, sweetheart, I'd be grateful. These old bones won't let me bend like they used to." Eleanor stood up slowly, her back protesting every inch of movement, her ankles sending urgent messages of complaint. But she knelt carefully on that dirty bus floor, like someone tying the shoelaces of life itself, and began working the worn strings into neat bows. Passengers noticed. Some smiled. Some nodded with quiet approval. One young man nearby set his phone down and watched intently, as if witnessing something he'd forgotten existed in the world. Kindness has a way of breaking through noise, you see. It cuts through cynicism like sunlight through fog. But not everyone on bus 47 carried kindness in their pockets. Some carried ego. And that ego was now staring directly at Eleanor's empty seat with predatory focus. Ariana Bloom, 26, fashionable, impatient, glued to her phone like it contained the secrets of the universe, had been standing since the bus left Maplewood Station. She didn't hide her annoyance. She didn't hide much of anything, really. Her entire life was an open book titled "The World Should Revolve Around Me." So when Eleanor stood to tie the old man's shoes, Ariana acted with the speed of someone who'd been waiting for exactly this moment. She slid into the warm seat with a swift, unapologetic motion, settling in like she'd conquered territory. Didn't look at Eleanor. Didn't acknowledge the belly. Didn't say a word. She just sat, crossing her legs as if the universe owed her comfort and she was simply collecting her debt. The old man noticed immediately, his kind eyes widening in disbelief. "Oh dear," he muttered, clearly upset. "Let me stand and you take your seat back." "No, sir," Eleanor said quickly, finishing the second bow and smiling despite the sharp pinch in her lower back. "It's all right. I'm okay standing." Ariana crossed her legs tighter and continued scrolling, as unbothered as a cat in a sunbeam. But the young man who'd been watching wasn't about to let that slide. His name was Tyler Finch, 29, software analyst by day and believer in basic human decency by nature. He was the kind who still thought the world could be good if people just chose to be good. He stood up and tapped Eleanor's shoulder kindly. "Ma'am, please take my seat." "Are you sure?" she asked softly, her voice carrying the gratitude of someone unaccustomed to receiving kindness. "Absolutely," Tyler said with a gentle smile that reached his eyes. She thanked him and lowered herself carefully into the seat, grateful to get the weight off her swollen feet. Ariana rolled her eyes so hard they practically completed a full rotation. "You people are so dramatic," she muttered loud enough for half the bus to hear. "It's just a seat." The tension in the air thickened like humidity before a storm. The driver glanced through the rearview mirror, his jaw tightening. And Tyler, with the cleverness of someone who understood poetic justice, stepped back toward the aisle with purpose. Now Ariana had a habit, a dangerous, disrespectful habit. She stretched her leg carelessly across the floor as she angled herself into someone else's seat, as if the entire aisle belonged to her personal kingdom. Tyler noticed. Oh, Tyler definitely noticed. His timing was surgical. As he stepped past Ariana, he let his foot clip the edge of her extended leg. Not enough to injure her, just enough to make physics do what physics does best. She yelped. Her iced caramel latte, brand new, expensive, ridiculously oversized, flew upward like a caffeinated fountain. The cup spun in slow motion. The lid popped off mid-flight. And the entire drink showered directly down the front of Ariana's cream-colored designer blouse. The entire bus gasped in unison. Ariana erupted like a volcano that had been dormant for exactly 3 seconds. "Are you kidding me?" she shrieked, standing instantly as coffee dripped from her neckline to her shoes. "You idiot! You clumsy!" The driver's voice cut through her tirade like a cleaver. "Miss, watch your language. There are children on this bus." Ariana ignored him completely and marched toward Tyler, her face the color of a fire engine. "You think you're funny tripping me like that? You ruined my morning. This is a designer top." Tyler remained perfectly calm, hands raised in mock innocence. "My sincere apologies," he said coolly. "You really shouldn't leave your foot sticking out in the aisle like that. It's a safety hazard." "Oh, don't play smart with me," she barked, jabbing a finger toward his chest. "I want your name. I want to report you. I want." The old man stood up suddenly and slammed his cane against the floor with surprising force. "Enough, young lady." A hush swept through bus 47 like wind through wheat. He pointed at Ariana with a trembling but steady hand, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd lived long enough to recognize selfishness when he saw it. "That pregnant woman helped tie my shoes when I couldn't do it myself. And you," he jabbed his finger at her, "were so selfish you stole her seat without a second thought." Several passengers murmured in agreement, heads nodding like synchronized swimmers. The old man continued, his voice firm but heartbroken. "You should be ashamed of yourself." Ariana's face flushed from red to crimson. "I didn't do anything wrong," she bellowed, her voice cracking slightly. "But passengers weren't having it. You took her seat. You didn't even offer to get up. You were rude to everyone. You mocked people for being decent human beings." Ariana spun toward the driver like a lawyer appealing to a judge. "Are you going to allow this attack on me?" The driver pulled the bus to a complete stop. He opened the doors with a hydraulic hiss. Then he pointed outward without a shred of emotion on his face. "Miss, this is your stop." "That's not my stop," she screamed. "It is now." He sputtered. She raged. She threatened everyone on board with lawsuits, viral videos, and consequences they'd supposedly regret forever. But rules were rules, and the driver had enough authority to evict someone causing a dangerous disturbance. And so, dripping in caramel latte and humiliation thicker than the coffee itself, Ariana Bloom stomped out of bus 47, shouting curses into the cold morning air that nobody on that bus would remember by dinner. The doors closed with finality. The bus rolled forward. And every single passenger sighed in collective relief, like they'd just survived a minor natural disaster. But here's the thing about kindness. It doesn't just end with a satisfying moment of justice. It keeps going. It ripples outward. And sometimes it comes back around in ways you'd never expect. The old man turned his full attention back to Eleanor, his eyes warm and wet. "My dear," he said softly, touching her arm, "you didn't deserve any of that. You are a blessing." Eleanor smiled shyly. "It was nothing really." No, he said, shaking his head slowly. Nothing is exactly what the world gives most days. What you gave me was kindness. And kindness is never nothing. Tyler nodded from where he stood. You handled that situation with more grace than most people could manage in a lifetime. Eleanor chuckled, resting her hand on her belly. I've learned that anger is heavy. And I'm already carrying enough weight as it is. The bus erupted in light, appreciative laughter. The kind that heals wounds you didn't know you had. But something unexpected happened next. Something that would change Eleanor's life forever. The old man reached into his coat pocket with deliberate care. He pulled out a small leather wallet, opened it slowly, and removed a crisp business card. He handed it to Eleanor like he was passing her a key to a locked door. This is my name and my son's office. You've helped me more than you realize today. She looked at the card, reading the elegant script, Harold Whitmore. But what made her eyes widen wasn't his name. It was the name printed beneath it in smaller letters. Mayor Christopher Whitmore, Office of the Mayor, Maplewood City. She whispered, stunned into near silence. His father, Harold said with a proud, slightly mischievous smile. And trust me, sweetheart, my son takes very good care of good people. Eleanor froze, her breath catching in her throat. Tyler blinked at her, impressed. Well, that's not the usual bus ride outcome. The old man winked. You'll hear from him. And when you do, say yes. Eleanor had no idea what he meant. But she clutched that card like it was made of gold. Because something deep in her heart told her the universe had just opened a door she didn't know existed. 2 days later, Eleanor's phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. Mrs. Hayes? This is Mayor Christopher Whitmore. My father spoke very highly of you. Her heart skipped 3 beats in rapid succession. Yes, sir, she replied softly, her voice barely steady. I'd like to meet you if you're available, he said warmly. And thank you properly for what you did. They met at City Hall the following afternoon. His office was polished but welcoming, warm wood, soft lighting, family photos on the walls. He shook her hand with genuine gratitude in his eyes. My father doesn't ask for much these days, the mayor said, gesturing for her to sit. But he insisted I honor your kindness in a meaningful way. Eleanor shook her head quickly. Oh, sir, I don't need anything. Truly. I was just helping someone who needed help. The mayor smiled, a smile that suggested he'd expected exactly that response. I know. That's precisely what makes you deserving. He slid a manila folder across the desk toward her. Inside was a certificate, an official letter, and a check. A check with more zeros than Eleanor had ever seen on a single piece of paper in her entire life. For your baby's future, the mayor said quietly. And for reminding this city that goodness still lives among us, even on crowded buses on cold mornings. Eleanor's hands trembled as she stared at the check. Tears filled her eyes and spilled over before she could stop them. Sir. Her voice cracked. This is life-changing. He nodded slowly. Kindness usually is. We just forget that sometimes. Weeks passed. Eleanor's belly grew rounder. Her hope grew brighter. The world felt gentler somehow, as if the universe had noticed her and decided to be kind in return. But the most beautiful moment came months later, after her daughter was born. A healthy, perfect little girl with Eleanor's eyes and her father's nose. Eleanor stood in the mayor's private office once more, holding her newborn daughter wrapped in a soft pink blanket. Mayor Whitmore approached them gently, his eyes misty as he looked at the baby. She will grow up knowing her mother changed a life with nothing but a shoelace and a gentle heart, he whispered. Eleanor smiled down at her little girl, her voice soft as a prayer. I didn't do anything special. The mayor shook his head firmly. Goodness is always special, Mrs. Hayes. Especially in a world that forgets to offer it. And in that moment, Eleanor understood something profound. Kindness doesn't just change the person receiving it. It changes the person giving it. It changes everyone who witnesses it. It ripples outward like a stone thrown into still water, reaching shores we'll never see. Kindness protects. If this story moved your heart, warmed your soul, or reminded you that kindness still matters in this chaotic world, please like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories that restore faith in humanity. Drop a comment below saying, "Kindness protects," and share this with someone who needs to remember that good people still exist. Let's keep building a world where simple acts of goodness create extraordinary endings. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next story.